All right, here we go. And in 3, 2, 1.
Yippee-Ki-Yay, mother.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Welcome to Yippee-Ki-Yay Mother Podcast Classic. Hey guys, what's happening? Happy New Year.
Hey, first one of the new year. So excited. Woo-hoo! Our 70 viewers are going to be so thrilled we're back.
This is good. This is good. We need more viewers on the show, but that's okay. This is
well, we got another 70 listeners.
Yes.
Yes.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do Chris's film. Chris, what's the name of your film?
It's called The Yakuza.
The Yakuza.
Yakuza.
And then we're going to do a round of the flash round of what you watch. The time.
So 5
version.
things.
Well,
With the
2
2-minute
minutes. You get
That's
5 to 2.
right?
You have whatever you want to do in 2. So, Chris, tell us, what's the movie?
I picked the film I'm bringing this week is the 1974 East meets West Japanese gangster / American gangster classic, The Yakuza. It's directed by Sydney Pollack. It was actually, the screenplay was written by Robert Towne and Paul Schrader. Can't get much better than that.
And Schrader's brother.
Leonard Schrader, too.
Yeah, and his brother.
Leonard Schrader wrote the story, but the screenplay was done by those two guys. So essentially, I'm going.
I read an interview with Paul Schrader where he said his brother wrote the script too. He just had more power and muscled him off the script credit.
Well, and he lived in Japan, I think.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these
Oh,
stories
I think both of them, yeah.
in Japan.
So
Chris, can I ask you one quick question? Is that the same Sydney Pollack from the Christmas classic Eyes Wide Shut?
it is.
It
is he the one who played Santa Claus?
Talented,
Fascinating.
cinematic renaissance man.
And this was
That's what he is.
this Sydney's first? No, it wasn't his first film, right?
It
No,
wasn't his
he did.
first movie. They shoot horses, don't they? I
Right.
think was his first
That's what
film.
I thought.
So there's a little bit of a departure from that. But basically, a small note on the screenplay, since we kind of got off track on that. At the time, it was the most expensive screenplay out there or ever. It was $300,000 for the screenplay. Wow. Plus, they got like 30% of the profit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if it had been a hit, which it was not, they would have been on the gravy train, as it were. But
Joe
basically,
Esterhaus money.
the movie stars Robert Mitchum and Takakura Ken, who is he was a super huge Japanese star at the time, and when you watch him in this movie, you totally understand why. You'll also maybe notice him. Not quite, but close to 20 years later, in the movie, the Ridley Scott film Black Rain.
Yep.
He plays the Japanese policeman.
This had Black Rain vibe. Black Rain vibe, but Black Rain stole from this.
Yeah, exactly. Black Rain actually took a lot from this.
Yeah.
Another movie I really enjoy, even though this one's better than that one.
I love
Black Rain is still worth watching.
I love that film.
But basically, the story is
Chris, his character's name was Tanaka Ken, right?
Yeah, the character is Tanaka Ken. The actor
his name is
Takakura Ken.
Oh,
I'm just going to call him Ken.
Yeah.
So there'll be no confusion.
It's like Roseanne. You know, it's always the same name.
He's basically his real name is his first name, as we would say in an American way. We'd say his first name is Ken. He's playing a character named Ken in the film. Is what it comes down to.
And you know who else is in this film?
yes,
our friend from
the
Die
guy
Hard.
from Die Hard.
Mr. Takagi. Yes.
Takagi.
Mr.
First one to get killed in Die Hard.
James Shigeta.
Yeah.
Among other, and then Richard Jordan, just great.
Well,
Richard Jordan is in this movie.
And the
Chris,
guy
why
from
don't you
the
go
Enclave.
on as we start listing the cast? Why don't you go on?
Go on. I'm
So-
sorry.
So basically, the story is
exciting.
I really like this story. It's basically about a guy, Robert Mitchum, kind of later in life, later in his acting life as well. He kind of has a great kind of later midlife sad sack look about him. And it's basically about a man who is lived in Japan, was in the military during the occupation of Japan, which is funny because, you don't ever hear much about the occupation of Japan. We've seen tons of war movies, but you don't really even see movies really talking about the occupation of Japan. Unless
Is it over?
For the most part, yes. Not as much as you'd think, but I still think we actually have more U.S. service members abroad in Japan or in Germany, but I think it may be Japan actually has the most U.S. service members. But that being said, the story is simply about, it's really about obligations. It's about debts. It's about friendship. and the breaking down of those friendships. It's basically about a guy who has had a couple of different jobs here back in the States, but he left. He fell in love with a woman during the occupation, and her brother comes back. And she basically says, I'll live with you, but I'll never marry you. This breaks Robert Mitchum's, Harry Kilmer is the character's name. It breaks his heart. So he goes back to the United States. Some of his friends stay in Japan. One becomes a very successful businessman. And that's what pulls Harry Kilmer back to Japan. He says, Harry, I need your help. My daughter's been kidnapped by a group of Yakuza, and I need you to reach out to Tanaka Ken, who's played fantastically by Takakura Ken, the Asian film star, the Japanese film star. And basically, so what happens is Kilmer goes back to ask a friend who owes him a debt because he took care of his sister.
Well, not a friend.
Yeah. Oh, they're not friends at all. They're not friends. But the thing is that he feels like he owes him a debt. And so, he owes a debt to his friend, the American businessman, and then Tanaka Ken owes him a debt. So there's this kind of web of goings on, and of course there's a woman involved. The woman that Kilmer left, hasn't seen her in 20 years. He goes back, and of course, that's of course her brother. We find out much later in the film that it's actually his wife, and that Kilmer had a relationship with this guy's wife while he was
presumed dead.
Those dudes in the Philippines that thought the war was still going on, even though it had been 5 or 10 years or 5 years later. So the long and the short of it is, so he goes back and to enlist Ken's help because he became a Yakuza after the war, and to get this girl, basically. He goes back there, needless to say,
to get the daughter
to get the daughter of the businessman. Needless to say, the rescue goes well, but what happens is Ken's involvement becomes known, and so therefore the price is put on his head, and his life becomes very dangerous
Because he's ex-Yakuza.
Yes, he has laid down his sword.
He got out, right.
And then he comes back to fulfill what he feels is an obligation to Harry Kilmer. But what I think I like most about this movie, and then it goes on from there, but what I think I really like most about this film is two things. One, it's not like super hypercharged. I feel like they take their time telling their story. And some people you could say it's languidly paced in some ways. And like, for example, I really love the sequence where he goes back to see his old girlfriend in the bar that he basically bought her as a goodbye gift, that she has then named Kilmer House after him for, so there's all this kind of interweb. I really love that part. It felt like they honestly were people seeing each other again after 20 years who'd lived lives and whatnot. And it felt realistic to me. I like the way that they overlaid the narration of his friend who stayed in Japan and is like a history teacher.
Herb Edelman.
Exactly. And he's telling the young guy, Robert Jordan, who's got probably one of the best pairs of plaid pants ever made.
Not to mention sideburns.
Exactly. And he goes there and he's got that old school, like giant white sweater turtleneck that's so great. Anyway, so as he's telling, the older friend is telling the younger man that goes with him kind of the story. And it's a great way to kind of like fill us in on the backstory without having a narrator, without having, him say to the girl, well, it's been 20 years since, kind of recapping their relationship. So I really enjoyed that. Personally, I've always been a fan of Japanese culture. I love Japanese film. So this really was kind of a combo for me. I saw it on videotape back in the 90s, and I've probably seen it at least 6 or 7 times since then. And when I saw that it was on HBO Max,
not anymore.
Well, that's the funny thing. Yeah, this is a movie that pops up and disappears. It's been on Prime. It's been on Netflix. It seems to pop up and disappear because it's no longer on HBO Max. With the new year, obviously the license was expired. So I'm glad we all got to see it before then.
I was watching it. I've watched it twice. Wanted to watch it a third time, and it was gone.
So I'm very interested. Had any of you guys seen this film before? And
clips of it.
I never seen.
What were your feelings? Because one of the things that's cool is like it's so quiet, and then all of a sudden there will be some serious violence. Sorry about the super red blood, John. I know that.
That was Hammer film blood.
This was also Sydney Pollack's first collaboration with Dave Grusin. Is that his name? The
Grusin, yeah.
Grusin, the jazz, the soundtrack.
Yeah,
he ended up doing The Firm, down the road. He did The Firm and a bunch of other ones in between, I think.
And
This was a very good
Japanese
score.
cinematographer too.
Yeah, he
couldn't speak
didn't even
English.
speak English. They were
Right.
showing
they
grayscales
used
to
like
each
a-
other.
Yeah.
They
Which
had
is-
gradations of gray
Yeah,
when they
grayscale, so they could say, this is how light I want it to be. Listen, I adored this film. I can't get over how much I adored this. This film was just right up my alley.
You hadn't seen it?
No, hadn't seen it. I love the Friends of Eddie Coyle, which also Richard Jordan.
Richard Jordan. Yeah.
And
Robert
what's our
Mitchum.
guy? Robert Mitchum were in that
There's
one.
some similar themes about loyalty and everything.
Well,
in
that and
Friends of Eddie
Black
Coyle.
Rain. Black Rain had a lot of beats that this one had, including Andy Garcia kind of playing the Richard Jordan part, but more pop-like. But same kind of thing happens to him. I loved all the actor who I thought was great in Black Rain. When I saw that it was him and I realized it was him, it was like, holy cow, this is awesome. And then, of course, the guy from Die Hard and the beautiful Asian, the woman playing, the actress playing his girlfriend.
Keiko?
And the themes of it is like apologizing and confession. The idea that confession, confession doesn't mean anything to them if you're not going to fix the problem before, I just love those themes. I like the idea that you pay back somebody if you're really going to pay a debt. And Mitchum paid a debt at the end with his finger.
Yeah.
The vibe
Ralph,
of
how many
this
fingers
film.
would you have left?
Me?
Yeah, you had to do that.
I would only do one pinky. I'm not going to go crazy. Who else is going to edit this stuff if I can't do it? Sydney Pollack. I mean, you talk about the relaxed nature. He talked about that in the, I guess, on the DVD commentary that, yes, they slowed things down. As a matter of fact, I think Warner Brothers might have produced this, wanted more action, more of the more sword fighting.
It was originally written that way, and he wanted
And
Can you imagine it with Robert Aldrich directing it,
and Robert
starring Lee
Redford?
Marvin?
Oh,
No,
yeah.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Mitchum pulls this one off.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's late in his
Unbelievable.
career and he didn't want to do a lot. And I guess that finger scene they had to do 21 times to get more pain out of him. I just thought this thing was languid and not boring and beautiful. Like the stuff is just gorgeous. So
This wasn't the
thoroughly
end of
enjoyed this.
Mitchum's career. This was his later career.
Right.
But he did a lot of films after this. Look,
Yeah.
when I knew it was a 70s theme, that kind of turned me off right away. But I love Robert Mitchum. I mean, I do. I love him. I like, and that's a perfect description of him, that sad sack look. I like this movie a lot. I liked their rapport. I liked his rapport with the woman. I was curious about the narration scene where they're filming the two guys talking, but they're showing them. And then I read that they just hid cameras in baskets and had them just walk around Japan, which I just found really interesting. And that was pretty unique for the time that they did that.
Gorilla.
I thought Richard Jordan, again, I'm a big fan of his. I thought was great. The only question I had, and I'll ask you guys because I couldn't tell, I was disappointed with the comeuppance of Brian Keith, because in that scene, you don't see Brian Keith, you hear his voice. So I'm wondering, was he even there to film that? Because I wanted to see a much bigger thing that he turned him in. That
confrontation.
That was a great twist. That I was disappointed that you never even saw his face again. Yeah. But I really enjoyed this. It kept me the whole time. I thought the action scenes were done not in a like a Bruce Lee type way. It was more realistic for that type of fighting. Now, of course, he's getting sliced all over the place, but he's still able to go.
Yeah, but when you watch the foot play, those guys were doing, the way they were handling their feet,
definitely with the balance and everything, it seemed real.
Themselves
and then I was kind of surprised at the end when they pulled the hat back and the guy had the spider on, that he didn't spare him.
Yes.
And was that why he cut his finger off?
Yeah, that's why he cuts his finger off and presents it to his brother.
Okay.
He even there's a scene where he's in the cemetery where he's basically apologizing, I guess, to their father about how I killed your oldest son's oldest son, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's the reason he cuts off his.
Yeah, so that finger was for the killing of the son.
Okay, that's kind of okay. Good, but I enjoyed it, Chris. I really like this a lot.
Right.
So
why did can we Sean and Drew, before I ask any questions, you guys have anything you want to say?
Okay, well, I know I've seen scenes from this movie, but I never saw the entire film. I loved this film. I watched it a second time. I would have watched it a third, but suddenly it disappeared. And, but this, you know, I really like, well, I love the two leads. I love all the actors in this. But, you know, I'm thinking about the other choices they had. Lee Marvin is the right age. But I can't see him being so repentant. I buy Robert Mitchum in this role. I buy him as an older man who was in Japan, and he's a sad sack. You know, he's a typical Robert Mitchum. He's you know, lizard-like. You know, I mean, he's like slow moving, but you can see he has the will to violence too. But you know, I don't think Marvin would have been as good, and definitely they were thinking of bringing Robert Redford in it.
Yeah,
I just could not see.
I don't see that.
He's too young, and it just would not have worked with Redford. But I think Mitchum was perfect, and Ken was perfect, and their relationship. I mean, Ken hates him. You know, I mean, he really hates him, and that is one thing. I guess I was watching this film with Debbie, and as soon as they said it, and I didn't see the end of the film ever before, and I'm like, that's his wife. You know, that's why they're so hostile, you know, and it turns out to be true. But the film, you know, the fact that I love this film and they spent a lot of time on it. And I think that's what the Schraders and Towne really liked, is this sense of honor that these men have, which the Brian Keith character
didn't have.
Totally betrayed.
Well, that turn
did
was
not
amazing.
have it.
That was an amazing turn that scene he has.
Yeah, and
he gives up the game.
I really like it. I liked, you know, Ken's other brother. When Mitchum comes to try to get Ken off, he's like, you understand obligation, but by coming to ask for my help, you're not fulfilling your obligation to him. You know, and I just think it is a great film, and it did, you know, everybody says it was a flop. It did really well abroad. It just did not do well in the United States. And I think there are two reasons. One, the honor concept of cutting your finger off, they said really alienated the audience. But also, two, something that was cruel but not unnecessary, because I don't think they needed it, was when Ken and, what's her name, Akita's, the daughter is killed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in a sense, yeah. She's such a beautiful. She's beautiful, a sweet character. They were going to have to face down these people no matter what. They didn't need the extra motivation. And in an American movie, well, maybe in the 70s, you don't kill off an innocent character like that.
Well, that's why Pollack was talking about why this is such a 70s. You could get away with that in the 70s.
Yeah.
But it also,
you could be creative and not have to pander to the audience because the audience doesn't like an unhappy ending. Come on.
And I also think that there's something to be said for the idea of, you know, the deaths of the older generation, because basically everyone from that generation dies. It's, you know, Dusty, you know, the Robert Jordan character is the son of one of their army buddies, the army buddy we don't see, right?
Yeah.
Hanako is their child. And even Ken's nephew, he kills. So it's like that whole other generation pays for the price of the debts and the obligations of the older generation, you know? So, I mean, when I look at it that way, because it's heartbreaking when Hanako dies, because you don't see it happen. It just kind of, you don't realize. It's funny when one of the guys falls into the sofa and his gun goes off. You don't even think about it, but she was on the other side of the sofa, right? And that's where she gets killed. And but it's like that whole second generation gets wiped out. Anyway,
and the thing about this whole honor is that the Mitchum character and Ken and everyone is acting on honor, but they don't even realize it. But it perhaps doesn't even matter. Is that the person, they're all acting as their honor demands, but the person who sent this whole thing into emotion, you know, Brian Keith's character, Tanner, was not honorable at all.
You know, completely.
You know, and he results in all these people being dead. And had they not decided to kill him too, you know, he would have gone back to his relationship with the Yakuza leader It's like they're friends, and he had cheated him out of all this money. Right. And so the Yakuza leader kidnaps his daughter, is going to kill his daughter, makes him come there, and then sends his men out and goes, "What really happened? Were there any guns?" He's like, "No, I was in debt, and I bought stock. Bought some.
I invested.
You invested it and lost it." He's like, "Oh, why didn't you tell me?" It's sort of like if he had just been truthful to the Yakuza leader, because they were obviously friends, this wouldn't have happened. But he wanted to save face. It's all about saving face. And I loved, how much Ken hates, Mitchum. But even when he's approached by the other Yakuza guys in the men's room, and they're essentially asking permission to kill Mitchum.
Right.
And Ken's like, he's family. And he's like, he's not they're like, he's not family. He's an American. And he goes, family. Yeah. So despite his personal, they do come to have a warm friendship, when they both, after all the things they experience, and
Mitchum saved his life.
Yeah, they save each other.
They save each other's life.
Yeah.
But I think it's more than that. I think it's more of an appreciation.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are kind of bound together in a way that made them unhappy. I particularly like, when the woman goes, "Did you talk to my brother?" And she's like, "He's unhappy." "Was he happy?" He goes, "No, he's unhappy." He goes, "He was unhappy?" She goes, and Mitchell goes, "He's been unhappy since he lost the war, since the war's been lost. I keep telling him it wasn't his fault, but he doesn't seem to believe me." I think there's a lot of great lines in this film, and
Well, you have two absolutely fantastic writers. And I love that part when he's talking to his brother and he's like, obligation. He's like, so they're talking about what a million. He's like, you come to me to discharge this. He's like, if you don't feel it, you don't have it. And it's such great. There's tons of great.
Well, they brought Robert Towne in to flesh out Mitchum's character too, to give him those things that Towne is known for, which is all the deep emotional stuff. Drew, what do you think?
So I love Robert Mitchum. He's one of my favorite classic actors. I actually first discovered him in those Herman Wouk miniseries. It was Pug Henry and the Winds of War and War and Remembrance. And when I think of a miniseries, that was the first one I remember really seeing. And it was after Thornbirds and after Roots. That was the one. And it was this huge epic thing with all these actors. And I didn't really know who anybody was, but I remember Pug Henry. And then I discovered he's got this whole career. Like Out of the Past is one of my favorite noir films. And I had a lot of trouble paying attention to this movie. It didn't hook me at all. And I was very careful. I said, I'm not going to fold laundry. I'm not going to look on my phone. This is important. I want to respect everybody's choice on the podcast. I didn't think it was stupid or dumb or anything like that. Although comparing it to Black Rain, I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but I remember that being pretty awful. So I don't know if that was useful to it, but I haven't seen it. I don't like a lot of Ridley Scott's movies because I remember what they looked like and I don't remember what they were about because that's not what is important to him.
Our guy does karaoke in this, or
right.
And
but I think
does some karaoke.
The thing that really surprised me, well, first of all, that whole thing about family, obviously that reminded me about family in the Fast and the Furious. So I thought maybe I can connect to that, but I didn't. I can't believe Richard Jordan has been dead for 30 years.
Wow.
That blows my mind because he's another actor I think is just
Was his last one the Red October? Was that his last?
That was one of the last ones. I think the last thing he was in was Gettysburg or something like that because he died in 93. Yeah, so 30 years ago.
He was so good. He's so good.
Yeah, he's amazing.
So yeah,
he's amazing in like 3 scenes in The Hunt for Red October.
Yeah,
he's just an incredible actor.
And
he's just in tons of stuff. We can list his whole filmography if you want. There's a lot of good stuff, but
and it's Richard Jordan, not Robert Jordan.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, Richard Jordan. Excuse me, thank you.
That's okay.
I don't know where I came up with that. He's a real dick. So I think the thing that shocked me, and I went back and I watched a couple of scenes more than once because I thought, was I just like not paying attention? The editing in the fight scenes, especially when they attack the big house full of all the men at the table gambling, and then they're some of them are just basically they're like swaddled and they have all the tattoos visible and stuff. I couldn't follow any of it. I couldn't follow any of the combat. I couldn't follow any of the anything. And I mean, I wasn't drunk or stoned.
No, the geography of that was tough.
It was the editing was incomprehensible, and I was really surprised because the movie wasn't like unprofessional or anything. No. I just couldn't follow it.
But that's true. Mitchum, I couldn't figure out what rooms he was in, how close he was to the actual fighting,
and who's looking at who, and is he watching? Is he watching?
That's a good criticism.
Well, like, is he watching his friend Ken, who played Ken? Is he watching him? Butcher these guys, or is he making his own way through these?
Yeah,
because he was walking through. He was walking through paper walls like Terminator or something, which was fun. that was like when you first see Daniel Craig in Casino Royale, and he's chasing the guy who's doing parkour, and the guy slides through the little window at the top of the door, and Daniel Craig just walks through the wall. I was like, that's American, okay, even though he was English. But this movie did nothing for me, and it's made by and involves people that I really like. Like, I mean, my God, Schrader and Robert Towne. And Sydney Pollack's no slouch, and Robert Mitchum, and whatever his name, Jordan with the R in the first name. I mean, really good stuff. It didn't do anything for me. And then I saw that it was disappearing, and I was like, okay, well, I'm glad I got to see it. And then I would say something about the CEO of Discovery, but I don't want to affect anybody's potential employment about pulling properties off of there. I mean, I think it's an important movie, but it didn't do anything for me.
Well, you have to admit, Drew, that every penny of the budget was on the screen. I mean, you have to admit that.
Well, the problem
everyone had great hair.
It was so on the screen that they don't think they spent any of it in the editing room, and that's
I don't know if you're insulting me with that, or if you just
what.
What do you... I had never heard about this film until Chris brought it to the table.
Oh, really? I heard of it.
I had never heard of it.
Yeah, I heard of it. I didn't know anything about it.
But I'm glad I saw it, because I fell in love with it. I mean, it's and I'm gonna purchase it for my streaming stuff.
I'm thinking I'm gonna get a Blu-ray of it too if it's available.
I'm not gonna get a Blu-ray, but I'm gonna I definitely maybe I have to look for a Laserdisc.
Yeah, I didn't like it that much that I'm gonna go buy it.
I actually want to hear the commentary. I want to hear what
I would like to hear the commentary too.
I know Mitchum got the Aldrich. He got Aldrich out and got Pollack. It was Mitchum when they casted Mitchum. He's the guy that didn't want Aldrich anymore.
Oh, really?
So the movie definitely changed when Pollack took it over, because he didn't want to do. Because at that time, I think it was 1974, right? So the Japanese kung fu movies were big, and this had originally that flavor to it.
It was going to be much more.
Pollack did not want that
kung fu action type movie.
Yeah,
and he even said that he felt that Warner Brothers was a little disappointed when he showed up with this kind of. Don't get me wrong, there's tons of action in this film,
but it's a character study.
Yeah, it's a much more of a meditative kind of look.
It's a 70s film.
Yes, it sure is.
So good.
It sure is.
Yeah,
I think isn't there a song played at the end over the credits?
Mm-hmm.
I forget. I think they play something over like an actual.
Oh,
song.
My Darling Clementine.
That's funny that was in there.
Yeah.
And they actually he happened to be there while they were singing it. That's why he did it.
Yeah,
that was a natural thing. So.
Well, it's funny. Almost it feels like every American movie that has a heavy Japanese element to it always has to have like that karaoke sequence, whether it is
it started here
or Rising Sun.
Rising Sun, right? Yeah.
Rising Sun's the other one. Black Rain, big scene in that with the karaoke.
Yeah,
well, the Yakuza is available on Laserdisc on eBay for $12.99 plus $14.99. I'm sorry, plus $4.99 shipping. And if you look at the cover, the tagline says 100 years ago they were called samurai, and I don't like that either.
Yeah, no, that's
completely false.
Yeah, no,
the samurai were a lot of things that aren't positive. They weren't like gangsters who thought they were important and living a life of honor while they committed crime. I mean, it's a little silly, but
I will say, Drew, that Debbie would be agreeing with you. She loved the last Indian film we watched, Kasari, but she was not engaged by this. Mm-hmm. She thought it was stupid, and I think it almost hooked her a few times, but it did not.
Yeah, I didn't think it was stupid. It just didn't connect with me. I mean, it didn't make me want to go and watch Showgirls again or anything. Like, I watched that and we're done. It's fine. But it just didn't do anything for me.
It's
but
funny,
again, I'm glad that I saw it because I'd heard of it, and I do like Robert Mitchum and Richard Jordan, and it's except for the editing, a lot of it is well made and showing things to Americans that they haven't seen before. Like life in Japan.
There is one beautiful shot he does, and I think Pollack talked about getting a specific lens for the shot
for the last shot
towards the end. It's not quite the last, but when they're walking away from each other.
Yeah.
Robert Mitchum, before he gets in the cab and then decides to turn around. That's just, it's beautiful. There's some beautiful shots in this film as well. Yes, it is one you have to just buy into and go with it, because it is it does languish a little bit. It's it's all about honor, a lot of talking going on, and but boy, oh boy, did it hit my aesthetic right on the nose.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but for a couple of things real quick. Ken is basically the coolest guy on the planet. Like, first he shows up with that jean jacket, and that was cool. And then he has that black leather jacket when he goes on the mission, and that's cool. And then he just has that tan trench coat, or raincoat with the black turtleneck. And I was like, everything this guy wears is like super cool. Anyway.
He's like me. Everything looks good on me.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking of when I was looking at him.
He's like, does COVID make you hallucinate, you guys? What the hell's going on here?
All right, well, let's review this one. Let's start with Sean.
Oh, thumbs up. As I said, I want to keep watching.
Thumbs up. This is not Cisco
you know
and
what?
Ebert.
I'm going to say Yippee-Ki-Yay.
Thank you. Oh, my God. How many times do we have to do this? John?
Yippee-Ki-Yay. Definitely.
Nice.
Definitely Yippee-Ki-Yay.
I think Drew needs
I
to
had that in the chamber.
Drew needs to cut his finger off for this bad review.
Yeah.
So he owes. Well played, you owe us. I say Yippee-Ki-Yay.
Yeah,
way
obviously, I liked it.
Yeah. All right. Good job. Let's do a quick round of what'd you watch. Let's start with Chris.
I haven't watched much of anything, just because of the holidays and whatnot. But one thing I have watched, I haven't quite finished it yet. And I know how a couple of you guys feel about it, but I've been making my way through Kenobi, and
lucky.
Yeah. My kids like it, or we were looking for something Star Warsy to watch, and I was like,
so they're not fans of excellence.
Well,
they're children. They have an excuse to sit there.
Yeah, exactly. But it was funny because one of the things that you guys were talking about is like, I'm watching this movie, and it really, I forget which one. I think maybe Drew, you made the comment about like somebody wrote a Star Wars story who's obviously never seen Star Wars, or maybe that was
like John. Yeah.
Okay. But it really felt that way. Like, you're like, why isn't he just using the Jedi mind trick? And like all these things start popping up. I haven't finished it yet. I still have to watch the last episode.
Well.
Or stuff like, why isn't he walking around that gate in the middle of the road?
That gate was really silly. That was
really?
That's like the toll booth.
Hiding her under the trench coat wasn't silly?
Right.
That was funny.
I'm Mr. Adult Man. That was terrible.
But the thing that got me, and maybe they'll say something about this in the last episode, but I was like, okay, like 2 episodes in or whatever, I was just like, well, wait a minute. If he rescues Princess Leia when she's 10, she's old enough to remember that traumatic event. Why would she be like, General Kenobi, you served my father in the clone, all formal with him? She'd be like, hey, do you remember me? I'm the kid you rescued a decade ago,
Well, because he had his hood up, so she wasn't really sure.
And that little girl could outrun 2 adult bounty hunters.
Only because there were trees, first of all, because they couldn't get past the trees. But also, it's entirely possible that she was Jedi mind tricked, but that was done off camera, so we don't know.
Yeah,
what had happened.
Like I said,
no
I haven't
spoilers.
seen the last episode, so I will make.
Well, it'll.
But other than that, that's really about all I've seen.
It'll meet your expectation.
Nice job. You had 5 seconds to spare. Anything you want to say?
Oh wow.
Nope.
Good. All right, John.
I watched a documentary on Carl Laemmle, and for those who don't know who Carl Laemmle is, he's the one who formed Universal Studios and the Universal Monsters, and just a fascinating story about an immigrant who came over here and was going to do one thing, and then saw a Nickelodeon and said, I want to be in the movie business, and took it to the next level, and took a studio that started off as a B-picture studio and turned it into a major studio. And the documentary is fascinating because one of the things he did was during Germany, the slaughtering of the Jews, he got a lot of Jews out of Germany on the payroll at Universal Studios.
Yep.
And that part of the story I found fascinating. Most of the people who worked there were somehow related to him in some way.
And there are a lot of Laemmle brothers and family members.
Yeah,
well, there was Dorothy Parker always said, if you want to know how to pronounce the name correctly, which was not she never didn't say it was Lemley. It's like, it's Lamley, as in he has a very large family. So,
And they tried to stop him too. The government tried to stop him because they thought he was pro-Germany or something. And he figured out ways to get around it to get more people. So he ended up saving a lot of lives from that. And for me, like the Universal Monster movies are some of the best horror movies I've ever seen. So it's just a fascinating documentary. It's on TCM. If you get a chance in your if you're a fan of classic movies and of a great historical story, check it out. It was really interesting. So I think it's about an hour and 45 minutes. It's really good. That's it.
All right. Nice. Drew.
So Chris said he didn't get to watch a lot of stuff because of the holidays. Because of the holidays, I got to watch a lot of stuff, and I watched a wide range of quality. There was one thing, I watched Black Adam, and I was like, they finally did it. They made a superhero movie without a sky beam, and then right at the end, there's a fucking sky beam. So that was disappointing. I actually watched a movie I was thinking of bringing for a Christmas movie because I hadn't seen it. I watched Klaus, which is an animated movie on Netflix that was up for an Oscar last year. Wonderful. Really like Santa Claus origin story. Really lovely movie. I watched Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which is just a delightful, sweet stop motion and live action movie about
What's it called?
the shell. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. It's Jenny Slate, the comedian's thing that she created on YouTube about 10 years ago. And I never liked Marcel the Shell before because I found his voice annoying. And this movie is so charming and beautiful, and you could watch it with your kids, and it's just really nice. I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Good film.
First
I
time.
haven't seen that.
Yeah, for the first time. I found it was moving at the end, but there was so much going on. I probably need to watch it again, and I didn't feel like doing that anytime soon, but it was good. I watched Nothing Compares, which is a new documentary about Sinead O'Connor, which will blow your mind because her life is even more insane than you think it is. But I'm going to devote the rest of my time to a real piece of shit that I really enjoyed.
35
called
seconds.
Fall. And Fall is about
my
two
God,
young
the
women
tower
who
one?
get trapped on top of a tower.
It's a great film.
That movie is so good. Because I watched it and I was like,
I never
this
heard
is
of it.
this is the
I
ascent
heard about
instead of the descent. It's the
Yeah.
ascent. Oh, I owe you
It's
something because I
amazing.
fucked your husband, blah, blah, blah. It's so well, it's like the most B movie I've seen of the modern era in a long time. And Kelly and I watched it and we were like, oh my God, this is so dumb and my palms are so sweaty. And then we went on IMDb and all the reviews are like, this was amazing. My palms are so sweaty. This was garbage. My palms are so sweaty. Like, you believe these people are up in this crazy place. It's really kind of amazing.
I want to comment on
I'll give you extra
something.
time because I like that film.
Okay, I want to
really
say
good.
The same
was
people
an
did
amazing new
43
achievement.
meters down or 45 meters down.
Yeah, I liked it better than
Now,
47 meters
did you
down.
watch
I
it
liked
on
the
your big-
shallows.
You watch it on your big
Oh, yeah.
TV? So
Oh,
that
yeah.
must have been insane.
It was intense.
It's all
It was
about
intense.
heights. It's an amazing film.
It was on, like, you could rent it for $4. I'd been wanting to see it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get it. Kelly, do you
Yeah.
want to watch it? She goes, sure. We had
a lot
a ball.
of fun. A lot
Had
of
a
fun.
ball.
And the twist
Well-
in there, you could kind of figure out, but still, even that was
Yeah,
pretty
it was
cool.
great. It was
Well,
fun.
Ralph, are you familiar with the technological breakthrough that film was?
Yeah, they dropped a lot of F-bombs. They
And they
replaced
used
F-bombs.
artificial intelligence
Yeah.
in order to make the mouths,
Yeah.
so that they wouldn't be in there. So that was heavily
Yeah, they were
processed.
dropping F-bombs everywhere, and they had to do it for PG.
Is that what they did? They fixed that digitally?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
I
fixed
didn't know
their
that.
mouths so that they were actually saying the words that they added
Right.
to replace the F-bombs.
Right.
This was the first major use of that.
Yeah. All right, Sean, go.
Okay, well, first thing I want to say is when we did Superman, we had our granddaughter Claudia here to talk about it, and she liked it. And our granddaughter Mara spent the night. We forced her at the beginning to watch Superman, and she ended up, she's like, particularly it started with black and white, which she calls gray. She goes, oh no, it's a gray movie. But she really liked it. But why I'm commenting now is because, when they're sending those criminals from Krypton and they open that big thing, what did they have?
Rings.
They had the light beam that goes into the sky.
That doesn't count.
That is the first one.
No, that's just light coming from the planet. That isn't light
Yeah,
beams bringing other
That's
people.
a light beam from there.
Okay, all right.
That's to transport them to the Phantom Zone.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay.
That's
Then
because
we
they're a
watched-
Phantom Menace.
Now, Debbie and I watched, Glass Onion, which I like better. We both
No
loved.
spoilers.
Liked it better than the first one of the things. It was really enjoyable. And then another film, Debbie came in late and I didn't have it recorded, couldn't back it up, was Heat of the Night, with Rod Steiger, Sydney Poitier. Of all the quote-unquote race films that came out, I always consider this one to be the best. Amazing performances by everybody, even Warren Oates. But the Rod Steiger performance is really amazing in that film.
Did he win an Academy Award for that one?
Yes, he won an Academy Award. I mean, Sidney Poitier is very good in it, but Rod Steiger, I think, is really gives an amazing performance, a complex character.
He's the one that goes through changes in that.
Yeah, he's the one that goes through the changes and everything. But, Sidney Poitier does too when he realizes he's acting on race too, because his judgment in the case is hampered by the fact that he wants the rich white guy. Okay, it's done.
Go ahead. You get 5 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, but it's a great film. It was on TCM. Debbie only saw the last hour of it, so we got to watch it again from the beginning.
It's In the Heat of the Night, right?
In the Heat of the Night.
In the Heat of the Night. Okay.
Famous. Remember the series with Carol O'Connor?
Carol O'Connor. It was very
and Harold Robbins.
Henry
was it Harold Robbins?
Henry Rollins.
Henry Robbins.
Who a friend of mine discovered.
Robert Jordan.
Gave him his first role.
All right.
Oh,
What?
really? Ralph?
Yeah, they pushed him on stage.
Oh.
He didn't want to act.
All right, let me set
But
the
my friend
timer.
was directing a play.
Set the timer to 4 minutes, Ralph.
4 minutes. All right, I saw Glass Onion, and I know Chris wanted to bring it, and I poo-pooed that one. Not because I had seen it, but I saw it after. I loved Glass Onion, and I think I liked it more than I liked the first one. I love the first one, but I don't think I could watch the first one because I already knew what happened and it wasn't stuff.
Yeah.
This one was better on the second viewing when I knew what was going on.
It's
it
more
changes
amusing.
the whole perspective of what you're
You
watching.
watched it twice already?
I did.
So Chris couldn't bring it on, but you could watch it twice?
I didn't want to do that. I don't want to do
That's
new films
interesting.
as our main review. It's a what you watch. So
Daniel
that's all.
Craig just came out and said he'll play that role as long as they want him to play it.
He should, because
As opposed to James
fantastic.
Bond, he bitches every time.
and
Well,
the
'cause
people
But
that he
that movie
surrounds.
destroys him. Like
Yeah,
it destroys
exactly.
him physically. Like
Physically,
Brendan
yeah.
Fraser doing the mummy
He's so
movies just
he's
destroys
so
him.
good in this
Yeah.
role, and
Yeah.
like I said, when you watch
It's
it
so much fun.
at the second viewing, you get a whole different perspective, and it's just fantastic.
It's hard for me to watch those movies because the director destroyed Star Wars, so it's really hard for me to
He
watch
didn't
that.
destroy Star Wars.
Yeah, oh, no, he didn't. He didn't.
No,
In
he
fact,
didn't
it's
make
so much
Kenobi,
stronger than
John.
it's ever been.
Destroyed Star Wars.
John, he didn't make Kenobi. Okay.
No, but he got the ball rolling.
He's got another one rolling. He's going to
That
do another one for
garbage.
Netflix, supposedly. I don't know.
The Last Jedi was the only one of those three that was worth watching.
It was definitely more
So,
interesting
anyway,
than some of
it's
the
a
others.
so
good
he was
watch.
the tall. No, he was. The
I highly
tallest dwarf
recommend
in the
No,
Glass
room.
I
Onion.
haven't seen Glass Onion. I did enjoy
First one,
Knives Out. Mostly, I mean, it was good. It was entertaining. It had all a star-studded cast. I mostly enjoyed Ana de Armas because who doesn't? And I don't know why I keep remembering that's the movie. Chris Evans has these like amazing cable knit sweaters, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Very
really
thick.
incredible.
Right
So,
up
okay,
to, yeah.
so that's what I was thinking. It
That
good.
was
And
filmed in
Daniel
my
Craig.
town. That was
Oh, was
filmed
it
in my
really?
town.
Well, Daniel Craig looks like he's having a good time. And
Yeah.
Yes.
As my wife will tell you, by rolling her eyes, that's a thing I have. I love watching a movie where I can tell they're having a good time when they make something good. If you told me Kenobi was the lightest, most fun set ever in the history of Hollywood, I'd be like, well, go fuck yourself. But I think it's fun when that energy comes out that they're excited about the project.
I mean, like you said, he goes from James Bond to sitting in a bathtub on a video screen talking to Angela Lansbury. I forget who the three people
with
are
that
in there.
southern accent.
He's so good.
Well, it
It's
was
so
like
good.
when he did Logan Lucky with his hair dyed blonde in that Soderbergh movie, which is a
film.
great fun movie. He was
Great
having a
movie.
good time.
All
It's
right,
fun.
here's what you watch. All right, so now we're going to spin the wheel for classic.
Wait, can I say one
Yippee-Ki-Yay.
thing before we spin the wheel?
Okay.
I just want to call out two things. One, that Buffalo player, with what happened with him. We're still
awful.
waiting. To
Oh
hear
my God.
he had a cardiac arrest, but also Jeremy Renner, who apparently he got in a plowing accident, and he's in critical condition. They have to do some kind of chest trauma, but it's real serious stuff that happened to him.
Was he plowing? I don't understand.
Yeah, he was.
He does man stuff.
Yeah.
God.
He got
See, I never do man stuff.
yeah, that's why. Why would
Well,
you?
some
Well,
things.
Thoughts to both of those people.
Yeah, so I just
Yeah,
wanted
it's
to throw
awful.
that.
That
out
was
there.
that was quite a scene last night. My
I know.
son Dylan was at that game. Dylan was
Oh,
there.
really?
Oh wow.
And I was
Wow.
texting him. They had no idea what was going on. So I was texting him, telling him what was happening.
Well, I'll tell you, the coverage they handled it really. ESPN handled it.
they
really,
did.
really well.
They did. I mean, I think they got a little, anyway. But
Nobody
it was-
knew anything, Ralph.
No, it was wild.
Yeah, I tell you what.
What?
Because of our son-in-law's been on the podcast twice. I'm really sensitive, and our grandson plays college football now too.
Wow.
Debbie and I are really sensitive to any injury to any player.
Wow.
And this was terrible. I mean, you look at it, it doesn't even look like it's a particularly horrible hit. You see worse hits than that in every game, but they just hit him at the right time. Right. We don't even know for sure what happened, but
they had to do
the boy
CPR.
He's 24 years old.
Right.
24 years old.
Yeah.
It's just a really sad thing.
I just want to throw that out. Spin the wheel, Ralph. We're starting all over again, right?
Hey, now keep it. Let me go to the wheel.
Now, Ralph, that is a good looking wheel.
Is it? Now that's all of us on there, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Everybody looking. Here we go.
I'm watching the wheel.
Spin the wheel. Oh, look at that. 2 in a row.
Nice.
That is
Mother.
Oh my God. He should pass it up.
Hang on. All right, Chris, you're doing it
back.
again.
We're back.
You got another one.
All right.
So there you go.
Congrats,
all right,
Chris. 2 for 2.
So remember,
Go
Chris,
buy a
any
lottery
film you want to
ticket.
bring. I might nix it if it's a new one, but
It's like the Gladiators. You know what I mean?
Right.
Ralph gives a thumbs up and thumbs down.
who
man.
knows what's going to happen?
No, he gives us Yippee-Ki-Yay or Yippee-Ki-Nay.
I'm not going to let you bring it, Chris, but I am going to watch it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After your last pick, I look forward to your next pick. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Maybe I'm kidding, but maybe we'll just do Black Rain.
I knew he was going to say that.
No, you need to think about this one.
That's
I wouldn't have to watch
I'll
it.
give it some thought.
I've seen it so many times.
The Last Jedi it is.
I have seen Black Rain way too many times.
No, he will not pick Last Jedi.
All right. So everybody have a good, safe week. Sean, you and
recently
Debbie
did
get
a
better.
blog. Yeah.
Hope you feel better.
I hope so
Yes.
too.
Feel better,
Yeah,
Debbie.
hang in there,
Me
Sean.
too, Sean.
We'll see you guys
Do
next
we
week.
want to pander to our audience at all, Ralph? About
You know what? I'll throw that up in the earlier.
subscribe, hit the notification button, smash the like button, please, 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 please.
All right, everybody.
And
Have a
if
good
you
week.
don't like it, and if you don't watch, Debbie and I may not get better.
Well, and if
Wow,
any
that's
of you,
a lot of pressure on our audience.
if any of you commenters have any movies to recommend from the subcontinent of India, we are all ears. So please go ahead and tell us what we might consider watching. But
you
I'll
don't
be
have
honest
to
with
ask
you.
that. That's
Some of
funny.
you have
You don't
given
have
us
to
some-
ask.
Some of you have given us some excellent recommendations that we have already done episodes on. So
That's
please
right.
check and see what you might have missed.
Yeah, we usually put. In my replies, I put the link to the
I
show
see that.
they requested.
Excellent. Excellent.
And
I
our
wanted
friends
you to
from
about
the-
too, so we did it.
And I appreciate any of our friends from the subcontinent who've been buying my book because they saw the thing behind there.
It's flying off the shelf.
Yeah.
All right. Well, when's the audiobook coming out?
I don't know, but I will say that the 2 chapters you read are currently among the 10 most popular blogs I've written.
Really?
At the bottom of my blog, it has the top 10
All right.
ones that are being
Stop
currently
pandering to
viewed.
John.
Now, wait a minute.
Oh
let me
my
ask.
God.
Let me ask a serious question. What if they make a movie of Chapel Street and John, you get cast in a lead role, but it's directed by Ryan Johnson? Will you take that job?
Edited
For Sean,
by Ralph
I would do
Bartucci.
it. For
I'd
Sean,
edit it.
I would do it. But
I'll
I'm just
edit
telling
it,
you, if
make
he
it work.
directs it, he's going to ruin the book.
I
I'll
will
edit
say, by the way, I do want to say,
Oh
I had
my
a very
God.
good meeting with the people yesterday. It was supposed to be an in-person meeting, but I couldn't do it, obviously, about people who are trying to make this book. And I think it's going to happen.
Sean, with this
It's going to be
face,
shot
could I
in
do it?
Boston.
Not with
Oh.
that face.
Not with this face. No, I
And
got
if it happens and it happens in Boston, I will exert what little influence I have.
Chris, would
try
you
to
like to
get someone
pander
I
to
know
anybody
in.
right now? Is there
I
anybody you want to
appreciate
pander to? No, you're good.
Nah. I don't know enough people.
All right, everybody have a
good.
good week. That's it.
Good.
Over.
Thanks, Ralph.
See you
Great
next
show,
week.
Ralph, as always. Great production.